Our next item of business is business rising from minutes item 5.1. Karen Blow, Chief Financial Officer, regarding update of 2012 budget. And we have, 30 minutes scheduled for that. There is a mistake on the agenda. It should be 30 minutes for this item and 15 minutes for the next item, which is council feedback on town hall meeting.
I was thinking, I've gone from 2 hours to 30 to 15. So I apologize, my memo was, I thought I would have longer on the agenda, and that's why it's so meaty, but I've tried to shrink it down. So I'm referring to pages 1 through 8 in the agenda package. I wanted to go through the budget that was presented by the managers in, I think it was October. I think I talked last time about that we've had the budget ready to go, and it's creating dilemmas, and I wanted to point out to you the dilemmas that there are in there, and that's what this document is trying to do in a super high level, assuming a lot of kind of way, just trying to point out the big differences. And there's small dollars really in the grand scheme of things, but because Bowen Island is small, they're big to us. So I think I wanted to show you what are the big differences between 2012's draft budget that we have and the 2011 budget that we're just finished working on in 2011. So on the back of page 2 in my memo, oh, actually, we should talk about the Finance Standing Committee first. Sorry, I forgot that I put that first on there. You'll recall, I think the last couple of meetings with old council and new council, I've recommended that we form a finance committee to meet and talk about budget and finance issues, probably to meet with the auditors to review the audit report and any other finance areas. So I've reviewed about a dozen other organizations, finance committees, budget committees, audit committees, and try to kind of think about, well, what is the purpose of this finance committee? And I think in talking with different councillors, it sounds like everybody has their vision of what the purpose would be. So rather than me proposing terms of reference, I guess I wanted some feedback first on what council feels the purpose. So I've just thrown out my draft purpose, and I'd like you to kind of kick it around a little bit, please, if I can ask you to do that. So I've put on here, I think the second paragraph I want to read first, and it's the italics paragraph under bullet 1 on page 1. The primary responsibility for BIM's financial reporting, accounting systems, and internal controls is vested in management, and the Finance Committee provides an oversight role. So then reading the first paragraph, the Finance Committee, Standing Committee has been established to provide recommendations to Council regarding matters related to finance. So I've not specified in there budget, audit, or reviewing quarterly or periodic financial reports, but I'm thinking that that's generic enough. So is it possible to get some feedback from council as to, is that what the vision was, or would you like it to be changed? And then from that, we could then do some work on terms of reference.
I think the rather than provide an oversight, I think it should be an advisory.
Okay.
You know, I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that. I look at the finance committee, and I'm not sure it's going to be just a finance committee. I kind of want to see it expand a little bit to deal with other issues that relate to administration. And I want it to be more of a super committee as opposed to just a single committee. I want to get away as much as we can from having so many different committees for so many different small purposes. And instead have some committees with working groups attached to them. So my first comment is that it should be advisory as opposed to oversight.
Okay.
I think the council is supposed to be doing the oversight. So I want to make sure that council continues to do the oversight and that it's an advisory capacity that we want these committees to act in.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any other councillors? Make a point here.
I see there's quite a need, and even an urgency to have whatever term this committee should have, but a group other than the council to review our financial situation. The opinion, justified or not, is that our finances are not in best health. And I myself am not particularly astute in reading financial statements, and I'm not aware, except maybe Councillor Morse, who has a financial background, that council is really qualified to do that. So before the election, it was actually suggested by several candidates running for the election to constitute or establish a financial advisory committee. And the idea was to have that maybe with a short term of 3 to 6 months to get an independent review on our financial situation, and then come back to council to express their finding and their suggestions. That, in my opinion, should be a temporary committee, reporting back to council, and council in their, it will be in their discretion then to do what they recommend or not. But parallel to that, I understand, and I think I remember that during the first term, for sure, maybe during the second term, after we became a municipality, we had already a financial advisory committee. And if I'm not mistaken, there were two councillors, even liaison. Was that Dick Underhill and Allison?
I'm trying to remember, I think it was myself and Ross and Derek Parkinson with the committee.
Okay. So, but it's not unusual, as a matter of fact, many councils have a standing financial advisory committee for good reasons. So should we have one financial committee for whatever during the term of the council, or should we have two, namely one an ad hoc with a limited time, a term maybe of 3 to 6 months, and then followed by whatever, a standing committee? I don't know, I don't have a particular opinion on that. But without, without such outside advice, I'm not sure if we as council would have the collective wisdom and experience to really make the best decisions for the, at least this term. And ideally, even today we have, I see a few faces here, which I know they have had considerable financial experience in their life. It would be wonderful to have some volunteers coming forward with the expertise to at least serve on the first committee.
I think we're actually treading into the committee structure, which hopefully we're going to discuss today, but which we'll discuss more fully on the 14th. Does anybody else want to make a comment on the terms of reference, should we say, as Karen sees it?
I think perhaps a short-term committee for the time being could give us some confidence to say, with these pending decisions that we have to make, or we feel we should make, that we can do so more comfortably on the short term. But I can see the wisdom that Wolfgang suggests of having a longer standing committee that would sort of ongoingly track how things are going with certain recommendations under the very numerous categories that we have here. So I can see the immediacy or the benefit to having some immediate impact and assistance to you on the first 3 to 6 months, and then take a deep breath, reevaluate, and look at it from a longer term perspective.
Councilor Rhodes?
Well, I agree with the mayor that it's perhaps advisory rather than oversight in terms of how I see it operating, whether it should be one and then another or not. I don't know. It might make sense that the committee that does that overall look actually carries on having all that background information, but that can be decided later, I guess.
Sure. Just in summary, advisory committee, 3 to 6 months, short but intense, and As to echo what Wolfgang has said, there are lots of people on the island with a very deep resume in financial matters, and some have expressed interest in being on the committee, and they're from different walks of life as well, so I think that's the route to go. That's all I have to say.
I did a little bit of surfing of various municipalities, and there seems to be a mix of either a committee or a council acting as committee of the whole when it comes to finance committees. And the other issue that comes up when you talk about a finance committee is an audit committee. And that is often a subset of a finance committee. For example, the Allen's Trust has a finance committee that's made up of 10 people. But 4 of those people are on the executive committee, and so a subset of that committee is the audit committee, which is the 6 people that are not on the executive committee, who meet with the auditors before the audit and also at the end to go over the audit. And then there is an oversight role that needs to be done for things like risk management, and just, that the internal control processes are in place and the reporting between the auditors and either the committee or the council. So part of the decision when it comes to the audit committee is, do you want to do this as a committee as a whole? I've tended to find over the last few years that it would be better if it was done as a committee with 2 or 3 people that have the interest and then somewhat of the skill set, and to meet with the auditors rather than all of council, because I find that eyes tend to glaze over when we start getting into some of those things. And they are questions that need to be asked and looked at. For the finance committee, I think there's 2 issues. One is this issue of where's the money going to come from to, are we doing things as efficiently and effectively as we could? And that issue, I think we haven't heard from staff on what's the title of what you're working on? Core review report. And we haven't, and then the other whole issue is where's the money going to come from to do all the capital things we're wanting to do. And so you could have a working group, much as we did with the budget processes, that would work on that sort of thing. Whether we want a finance committee, I think Karen's wanting somebody to sit with, if I'm understanding the way it works at the Allen's Trust, for example. They look at 2 or 3 or 4 versions of the budget before the one comes forward to the Trust Council. So there's been a lot of detailed questions asked and vetted. So the question I think we have to decide is, do we want to do that as a committee of the whole ourselves? Not here in a regular council meeting, but a special couple of sessions where we actually get into and ask a lot of the questions, or do we want a committee to have vetted a lot of that? And for example, today we've got a suggestion of the reasons why the budget's changing. Well, in a finance committee, you would go through more detail of what those reasons are and why that one came to the top and what else got left out. So do we want to do that as a committee of the whole, all of us, or do we want to delegate that task to a committee? And remembering back the first term, a lot of what we did in that standing committee was just getting processes up and running, which nobody really wanted to, but everybody wanted to delve into all the details of the budget. So then if you end up with duplicate effort, if the council's going to want to do that as a committee of the whole, all of everybody, or are you willing to delegate? We found at the Allen's Trust that there was not a lot of questions asked. There were some, but not the hours that were spent by the finance committee once it got to Trust Council. So I think the basic question is, do we want all of the staff to detail, or do you want to delegate it to a committee?